We welcome you to another episode of the Saturday Sports Shift, and we are post Richmond here on this Saturday. And oh my goodness, Richmond, that was pretty much a mess. Like, we're just going to call it that, I guess, to start off with. We also got the Daytona 500 post race stuff to talk about because we never officially had one after that. We had pre race podcast for the 500, not a post race one, obviously, because it was last Saturday. And we got to talk about all the suspensions and penalties from Richmond and a lot more. We'll have a special guest coming on later tonight in this episode of the Saturday Sports Shift. Obviously, we had the Cup Series on Thursday, the Grand National Series on Wednesday. iCar was on Tuesday as well. They had a late model race on Monday, but it was actually canceled for whatever reason. We had, of course, I think 34 cars, 35 cars in the Cup Series, 33 in the Grand National Series. Obviously, both those fields were maxed out, and Daytona got pretty close to it here in Richmond tonight. We expect probably more as the season goes on. This was just, of course, a short track. But, of course, we'll start off real quick with the Grand National Series. I don't even know how many cautions. It was over, I think, 15 or something like that, around that area. I mean, of course, bringing in our co-host tonight, as always, Brody Webster, returning as the co-host after a week away after Daytona. Brody, you were in that race. It was not a very good one for you.
Yeah, no, that's the easiest way to put it, to be completely honest. I mean, it was a crap show. Just gonna be completely honest. Just the end pack of the field just could not keep it together at all. Ended up just wrecking or self-spinning or something. Like, yeah, I get the car was a little loose, but there's just some people that need to learn throttle control and, are kind of just getting used to the car for some reason, where they probably should have already like learned this and practiced this, and especially before the race where they were just dive bombing, taking it three wide, and then just taking each other out. And I can say I was a part of a lot of wrecks that were not even close to my fault and ended up with lots of damage from it. Had to pretty much pit after every wreck, which, I mean, I won't complain. Like, I will complain about the cautions, but like it did definitely help my race. I would have been riding in like a awful car the whole race if it went green, but instead I really got the chance to like fully repair my car and then of course just end up in another wreck before the green white checkered. And that was pretty much the story of my race, but pretty much everyone else's too was just getting wrecked, having damage, and just having to finish it out like that. And just off, like, if we would have went green, I think it would have been a really good race, but just the back markers really messing up some of the best racing we could have had all season.
Yeah, of course, there were 14 cautions in the Grand National race for 125 laps. Well, not caution laps, but of course just laps overall in the race. So I believe, I don't know if we had an overtime. I kind of forget. I know in the Cup Series we definitely did. Yeah, we did have an overtime in the Grand National Series. So 14 cautions. Of course, Cameron Chandler went to victory lane in the Grand National Series. That makes it 2 for 2 for Cup Series drivers winning down in Grand National after Axel Smith won in Daytona. We'll see if that trend continues after, of course, the Christmas and New Year's break that we're kind of forced to take these next 2 weeks for both Cup and Grand National. So, of course, wild Grand National race. It was even probably more wild for the Cup Series. So 200 laps that saw 21 caution flags. That is only one behind the all-time record, which was last season at Martinsville.
Martinsville.
Yeah, that was, oh my God, same thing with the Grand National Series, but that last season. But that really kind of had an excuse because it was Martinsville. This was Richmond, and we're not really supposed to see this kind of thing at Richmond Raceway.
And I think part of it was the cars being a little loose, but also I just think some people are like, I just don't think they're ready to race in the Cup Series. And as you can see, like there's going to be some drivers getting some penalties, not being allowed to race in the Cup Series anymore after just not really like knowing what they're doing as much in the Gen 4 car, and definitely need to learn to make better starts in the Cup Series if and when they do.
I mean, the really unfortunate things with both those races is the racing here at Richmond this week was really, really good when we actually went green flag. So it was actually pretty decent. At the end of the race, of course, there was a late caution flag while Braden Hunsicker was leading all the laps. I believe he led the most laps on the day. Of course, your defending Cup Series champion. That bunched up the whole field. Braden lost the lead on pit road. There were 3 overtime restarts, and we ended up finishing under caution with Matthew White taking his first win of the season, 23rd career win for the driver of the 7 at Highline Motorsports. Hunsicker came home second after a disastrous Daytona 500. This was a perfect way for Highline Motorsports to regain their spots at the top as they go for another team's championship I believe they moved up to sixth, I believe, in the team's championship, or maybe seventh. And Matthew White and Braden Hunsicker both moved up. Matthew currently sits 10th on the chase, a few points above Greg Holes in the chase standings. Hunsicker is their ninth, right ahead of him. So yeah, it was definitely a wild one in Richmond. Before we go over penalties, let's bring in our special guest for this week. And our special guest for this week is the driver of the 8 in the Grand National Series. He's had an alright season, currently sits ninth in points. It is Richard Cherry. So, Richard, I know it was a wild Grand National race, and of course the Cup Series race where you made a start there in the Cup Series, your first of the year, of course, on Thursday. So, I mean, just a pretty wild one for you. Kind of some unfortunate wrecks you got involved in. Just not the greatest week, I would say, overall for you guys. Pretty unfortunate luck.
Yeah, I just found out. I mean, I always say this with every single track, it seems. So it might be escalation, but I suck at Richmond. I suck at the short tracks, and it's curious because in the Cup Series, those are the tracks that I'm gonna be doing. Besides Pocono and Michigan, with Miles doing the bigger tracks. So yeah, it was just an unfortunate week there. Grand National, I had some issues with kind of an emergency, but then I was told that the emergency wasn't just as bad. Well, it wasn't even an emergency. It was just like, I don't remember what it was, but, or I don't want to go much into detail. So, yeah, I went a lap down and then I had to get my lap back and then lost all the track position. Got caught up in the late wreck and finished in the top 10 still. So, it was quite wild. And then in the Cup race, it was just wreck after wreck with lack of pace too. So.
I mean, obviously, we move on to Fontana Auto Club Speedway next week. You guys are pretty good there at Fontana. Two really good Grand National finishes the last two seasons there. I mean, I know season 2 or season 3, I believe, you guys got wrecked, but you were second battling for the win. I think you guys finished second or third back in season 3. You think a win is coming this year?
I don't know. I mean, we will just try to be in position to try to win these races, and then let's see how luck or circumstances you dictate the outcome. I mean, that's as long as we are we can finish the races just fighting for wins and all that. I think we can be pretty happy.
Yeah, I can agree with that statement. I think if the biggest thing you're gonna have to do in the Grand National Series, where it's a full points format, is just being consistent with your finishes. So,
yeah.
So, Cheery, I know you and Brody Webster are both racing in the Grand National Series this season. I mean, I know he's kind of in the back sometimes, but what has been your experience with Brody?
I mean, he's been improving a lot. I said it at Daytona while I was commentating. He was leading the race, so in the plate tracks, he says he's quoting Christopher Bell the whole time. He loves super speedway, so he's been doing great there. He just needs to improve the rest of the tracks, and even then, he's been making a lot of improvements. So he has a great guide in Cameron Chandler, and Cameron is gonna be able to guide him through the different tracks, and maybe we'll see him contend for a win soon.
yeah, I obviously need to improve with the short tracks. Those are like easily my worst. Then maybe road courses. So hopefully we'll see a good finish out of Auto Club, and me and Richard Cherry will be in the front.
We'll see about that. So, anyways, Richard, thank you for joining us on the set tonight, and good luck coming up in Fontana.
All right, thank you.
The next segment we go in our podcast tonight, of course, episode number 5 of the Saturday Sports Shift post Richmond. We have a lot of penalties to talk about. So, Brody, I think it's just time we should just get into some of these.
Oh yeah, I'm ready for these. I think this was easily the one of the worst penalty races. Since May, I mean, you gotta bring up Martinsville last season, but before that, previously, I mean, nothing really as bad as this. Especially because we're at Richmond is really the worst part. Thinking about the whole thing, is that is really normally not one where you see a ton and a ton of wrecking, unlike Martinsville, where that's just pretty normal, where like it's a really short track and you have to bump to pass people, and I understand why there was a lot of cautions there for that. But just Richmond, it just doesn't make much sense, and that's my biggest thing. But yeah, let's go. let's take a deep dive into these penalties.
Well, yeah, of course, real quick, I would honestly say it was pretty unacceptable with the amount of talent we have in both Grand National and the Cup Series fields this season and nowadays compared to other seasons past that this sort of thing would happen at Richmond, even though even before the last few seasons with the Cup Series at Richmond, they've been pretty much completely clean. We've had long green flag runs all race long, but of course, now, of course, get into the penalties. We will start off with the Grand National Series, and we will start off with some of the suspensions. So, Aiden Holes has been given a 3-race Grand National Series suspension and a 5-race probation after that. So that is huge for him. Of course, he's full-time in the Cup Series, but that obviously doesn't want to see that. He's been racing in the Grand National Series part-time. Jeremiah Gauntly, he's of course full-time in Grand National. He's been awarded a 2-race suspension from the Grand National Series, so that is not very good for him. That's going to pretty much derail his big championship hopes, if there even were any after Richmond. You're talking about Cole Wilson. He actually got a 5-point penalty after this one. Max DeFilippi is going to have to start at the rear of the field at Fontana. Christopher Lowell and Ethan McCook are both going to have a drive-through penalty at Fontana. And Brody Webster, Christopher Lowell, D. Boys, Moon, Coke, Kyron Wilson, and Mason Ward will all given warnings after Richmond for the Grand National Series. I mean, just a gauntlet here to start off, and that's just one series, the race on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think my warning was unbelievable. I only terrorized one guy,
All right.
okay?
Sure, Brody Webster. Anyways, we'll
No,
move on
no,
to the Cup
no, no,
Series.
nice
Whoa.
try.
Wow. All right, Cup Series time. Jeremiah Gauntly, a 5-race Cup Series ban and a probation, I should say, for the entire rest of the season after he comes back for his part-time Cup Series starts. That is probably the biggest penalty we've handed out all season long so far. I mean, it's only race 2, but still. And then, how about this one? This is a big one. Connor Asbell, of course, he won in Fontana. He is suspended for Fontana after the Christmas and New Year's break. And your Daytona 500 winner, Bryce Benton. Those are 2 huge suspensions. So, Daytona 500 champion this year, driver second in the points, and your defending winner at Fontana will not be showing up to California in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, which is the crazy part is, Bryce Benton's was on an all-time high, getting his first win in the Cup Series. And it's at Daytona, one of the biggest races all season, and of course, just absolutely let down after Richmond, and now is going to pretty much have to he's gonna have to take a race off and really be on his A game now if he wants to make that chase, because one race without points can really take out your chances just like a snap of the fingers. It's really crazy to think about, but you know it's just what happens when I guess he did something during that race, obviously, but hopefully we can just see some cleaner racing soon from all the people that got penalties. But yeah.
Yeah, all these penalties were meant to obviously punish whatever happened there and then make sure this stuff doesn't really happen again. We can't ever have this sort of thing happen with a race week like this at a track like Richmond, of course. If this was Martinsville or Bristol even, I would give it a little bit of a leeway, but this is Richmond. I know it's still a short track, but still pretty much unacceptable. So for some points penalties, we have Sean Hilquich and Eli Tomlin, just like Cole Wilson and Grand National. They both get 5-point penalties. Not too major, definitely better than being suspended for a race or 2 or 5 like Jeremiah Gauntly, but still not the greatest. And then you have Donovan Hogan, Trenton Wilkin, Eli Tomlin, John Butler, and then, of course, Sean Hilquich, all going to be starting at the back next in Richmond, or not Richmond, what am I saying, in Fontana. And then for the warnings, we have Aiden Holes, Gary Smith, William Reagan, Zane Herman, CJ Erman, Jacob Malone, Jacob Quill, and Davian Tobin, all for warnings. So obviously another gauntlet for penalties in the Cup Series. I mean, we knew this right after the Cup race that it was going to be pretty big for both series. And this one, I would argue, is just even bigger than the Grand National Series.
Yeah, I think where it was more laps, that was the key. There was more laps equals more people being kind of dumb and doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. And obviously this shows with a lot of people getting warnings and a lot of people getting penalties.
I mean, we didn't have any penalties at all in the Cup race. Of course, the Daytona 500, which was last Saturday. Let's talk about that a little bit. Of course, Bryce Benton, like we mentioned, going to victory lane there. First ever career win. Brody, we got to talk about the insane final lap crash. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I think you were involved, by the way.
I was. Indeed, I was. I will tell you what it looked like from my point of view. I see one car go up into the like catch fence, and well, what I tried to do was kind of like go down on the apron and avoid it, and of course, yep, just got pulled right into it, and pretty much I got to see Jamie McKinney experience the catch fence, and I got to experience his CTE firsthand. Had a great view of it, but yeah, it was just an awful wreck, and honestly, I mean, it didn't surprise me much, you know. We gotta love Cameron Chandler, but you know, it's trying to stick it in there. I get it's the going to the checkered flag, but trying to stick it in there was just when he's not clear, just kind of sucks, and yeah, it caused the huge one.
Yeah, of course. The Daytona 500, though, overall was a pretty good race. We talked about Matthew White and Braden Hunsaker crashing. I guess not out for Matthew early, but right before the stage break, they were leading, and then I think Braden might have pulled a little bit of a late block and kind of wrecked about 10 or so cars after that. But ultimately, the Daytona 500 was great. Bryce Benson, of course, ended up winning. Jacob Malone was second, and I know this hasn't officially, when we're filming this at least, it will be once this episode is up, but it hasn't officially been announced when we're filming this. There is some big, major news coming out of Ethan Trendler Racing regarding Jacob Malone and Trenton Wilkin.
Ooh, you want to explain what that is, Ethan?
Yeah, so of course, obviously I'm the team owner of ETR. Jacob Malone is going to be replacing Trenton Wilkin in the six rebranded 6-4 Taurus for the rest of Season 5. Jacob has had an insanely good Cup Series campaign in the part-time races he's ran so far. Obviously, he was full-time in the Grand National Series by winning the Clash, winning his dual race, finishing second in the Daytona 500, and finishing fifth at Richmond. Trenton's kind of had a struggling season, and Trenton is going to be moving down to the Grand National Series once again. First full-time Grand National year for him since season number 2. He will be back in Grand National. He's got 3 prior Grand National wins, so it's going to be a bit of a driver swap there. Jacob, of course, was third in the Cup Series points anyways, and now he's going to be put third into the chase points. So huge news coming out of ETR, and pretty much season-changing news as well.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, I kind of like that, Ethan, because I mean, Jacob Malone was really who I was thinking was going to win the Grand National Series as long as he stayed consistent because he had pretty much been running the best, uh, like both races and showing a lot of promise in the Grand National Series. So I was expecting him to pretty much pull away with it pretty soon. But I mean, I think that's huge news to me, and I think every other Grand National driver that's really like neck and neck, where he definitely had a lot more talent than a lot of the rest of us. And so I think this is going to be huge news to the drivers and especially for Jacob Malone. I think that's a great seat upgrade, you know, going to the Cup Series where he's been performing very well. So I think I can fully agree with this decision, Ethan Trendler, which I don't agree with you much, but
Wow. But you can't write off Trenton Wilkin. He won 3 races in his career, won one last season in Grand National when he was part-time, and then, of course, made the playoffs in the Cup Series. Last 2 years full-time, obviously, in the Cup Series. Never won a race, only made the playoffs once, got limited in round number 1 back when we had the playoffs instead of the chase, obviously, the last 4 seasons. But, of course, he nearly won the Grand National Series championship in Season 2. Is probably the second best driver all year, just behind Aiden Donahue. So, I mean, he is really, really good in that Grand National car, and you cannot write him off whatsoever.
no, I agree. I just think where it's a full season points format, he is going to have to be consistently very good to try and make up the points deficit he's going to have after really, quote unquote, missing 2 races where he was running the Cup Series.
Of course, now that, of course, Jacob Malone has been moved full-time to the Cup Series, he will take over third place in the point standings and the chase standings. So your official chase grid, if the regular season ended today, would be Aiden Donahue, Bryce Benton, Jacob Malone, Sean Rowe, Cameron Chandler, a surprising underdog for Jacob Whale, Axel Smith, Payson Lindsay, Braden Hunsaker, and Matthew White. I mean, maybe outside of Jacob Whale, no hate to him or anything, this is an insanely stacked grid already.
Yeah, I can fully agree with that. A lot of talent, a lot of talent. If the chase started right now, like I think you're gonna see a lot of guys retain these spots, but you might see some slip in and out and pause, but you know, go in and out, and I think this chase format is really gonna show like a really good end of the season where it's going to be a lot of talent and a lot of guys trying to fight for it at once. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, so of course, top 10, like we mentioned, Holes is just -3 on Matthew White. Gregory's behind the cut line. So is, driver made playoffs last season. John Butler, driver we expect to make the playoffs this season. Jacob Quill, currently 18th in points. You see Ashton Miller, 24th in points after winning his dual race and doing really nothing else after that. There are still a lot of drivers. Sean Hillquich made the playoffs last season. A lot of drivers that are below the cut line right now that could even make splashes towards it once this regular season concludes.
Yeah, and I agree. I think you can't really say much after 2 races, but there's definitely some signs you can see on who's going to really dominate and pretty easily be in the chase. But there's going to be a lot of a lot of spots that people are going to really have to fight for towards the bottom of the chase trying to get in.
Of course, after the first 2 races, we move on to Fontana. Unfortunately, we do have to take 2 weeks off because Christmas and New Year's, they're both on a Thursday. New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, they're both on a Wednesday. Grand National and the Cup Series both run Wednesday, Thursday, obviously, so that really doesn't work out too well, so we will have to take 2 weeks off, but we do have the iCar Pro Series, not this coming week, the next week. We have an iCar Late Model Series race, I believe, as well. We'll have a Lobbies Night, and we possibly will have a very special event coming pretty soon as well, so a lot to look forward to, even when the Cup Series and the Grand National Series are not going to be on the racetrack. So, of course, Fontana, always such a good race for both Cup and Grand Nationals, those 2 series, obviously. They will be under the lights yet again like they have always been. Should be a really, really fun show. First ever races for the Gen 4 car here in the Cup Series, and obviously the Grand National Series returning once again with that new race car, but some driver changes, obviously. So, Jacob Malone, I really do think he could be a strong contender for the championship this season. Same thing with all, I would even say maybe, I don't know, I would put 6, maybe 7 of these top 10 guys right now with a chance to win this title. Okay,
You
nice
did it
try.
again.
Talking about guys like Aiden Donahue, Bryce Benton, Jacob Malone, Sean Rowe, Cameron Chandler, Braden Hunsicker, trying to win back-to-back titles, Matthew White, Ashton Miller. All those guys I could see maybe winning the championship this season, and it's crazy only one of them is actually going to do it. Yeah, so of course, Fontana coming up next should be such a fun show. We got some off-week stuff happening as well around the NASCAR iRacing FedEx League. Not exactly sure if we're going to have a podcast both weeks. These next 2 weeks, we'll definitely have them for one. I'm not sure about both. We might have an off week for the podcast as well. And then, of course, after that, we'll be back to every single week. So that will just about do it for another episode of the Saturday Sports Shift. Of course, we'll be on track in Fontana in about, 19 days or so for the Grand National Series. Unfortunately, a little bit of a long break, but we'll have some special events, iCar and the lobbies coming up during this off little break that we have. So that'll do it once again for the Saturday Sports Shift. We will see you in the next episode. Not exactly sure when it's going to be, but we'll see you then when it is. So thank you for watching another episode of the Saturday Sports Shift, and we will see you next time.